Like most, I grew up in Christianity, in a faith-filled home, but all faith aside, growing up through that was like trying to swim during riptide. Riptide, a strong current caused by a tidal flow in confined areas that presents a hazard to swimmers. How well can you swim? You can grow up in a home where your family is all amazing swimmers, but we all know that doesn't make you one. In the long run, if you want to be a swimmer, you have to swim. In the same sense, to be a Christian is more than growing up in it. You have to grow for yourself. If your Bible just sits on your bookshelf, how are you going to swim if you never learned? It took me a while to begin to learn to swim in this way. All people did at school was push me away, and being at home never seemed to be a good day. Being alone was the one thing that seemed the most okay, but it wasn't okay. It was only 6th grade and I already felt worthless and betrayed. The smile that all the other kids seemed to have on their faces faded away from mine. No matter how much I prayed, this overwhelming self-hatred and sadness stayed, and boy, did that weigh and weigh and weigh down on me. It doesn't matter if you can swim when chains are dragging you down, does it? Now, I don't think middle school was anyone's golden year. We all laugh and cringe looking back, but that's when my life seriously started to crack. All my life I had tried and tried and tried to be this good Christian, but I felt forsaken and hated. Maybe God messed up when he created me. This all got so far to where I questioned, is God even real? It's so funny how unreal things seem till the impossible becomes possible. When you have an encounter with God, your whole life is turned upside down in the most beautiful way you could have ever imagined. When I was in 8th grade, COVID hit. My dreamed up graduation party and trip were all just what ifs and what could have been as I sat home staring at a screen just to have black screens and faceless names stare back at me. Over COVID, I had this dream that I couldn't explain. I didn't know how to explain that these things I saw a month ago in my dream were now the things that were happening in the world. I met up with the pastor I knew, but I had no idea how this conversation would go, which took place at Starbucks, wouldn't you know? We talked for a while and we had a great time and conversation. He went on about the gifts of God, but that's when the air shifted and a word of knowledge had drifted into his mind. Mind you, this was a man who knew nothing of me personally. That's when he said, "You struggle with worth." Those 4 words shook my earth. I went home that day and cried tears of joy and danced around my room like no tomorrow, because tomorrow and every day after, I would remember that God hears me. Every plea and every cry, every hurt and every lie, God hears me, and he hears you. All the times before, I just didn't have the ears to listen to him back. This newfound joy had rocked my world. My world was beginning to be built on a rock and not the sandy waters on the dock. I used to be drowning in the water, but that's when a man came looking for his daughter. And when he finally reaches you like a father, the more the enemy might churn the water. For me, that looked like a boy. A boy who had a crush on me in middle school, but I would have never guessed how he would become the enemy's tool. Sure, some of his comments would be vulgar and odd, and he wasn't the sharpest pencil in the pod, but we're all flawed. Besides, I wouldn't see him in high school until I did. 2 years in a row, we had classes together, and yup, you bet he was still a kid. But those couple of inappropriate jokes in middle school turned into every word out of his mouth. Every word was filthy and disgusting and crude and rude, then I became the target of his lewd comments. He said things that made me cringe and cry. I was uncomfortable beyond all measure, for all that worth I had found in God was quickly destroyed by some boy. He made me feel ugly and broken, like my body was the only token of my worth. For every lie he had spoken, I let those words pour into me. I grew comfortable with being uncomfortable because it was funny and not a big deal to everyone else. So I guess I should just agree. But things started to change when he began to put his hands on me. I was so ashamed. I felt like I couldn't tell anybody. I was so ashamed of me, but God never was. I felt like it was all my fault, but God was never angry or forsaken me. God saved me. This boy had taken so much power over my life. The day he choked me will always be a memory, but it doesn't have to control me the way it did. See, every time I saw him on campus, I would cry and tremble, and fear took over every part of my life. I was afraid to sleep because of the nightmares I had. I was afraid that every boy had bad intentions. God intentionally encountered me, and he'll encounter you too. It doesn't matter what you've been through, he's always been there. I went from fear at the thought of this boy to seeing him just a few feet away and beginning to pray for him. It doesn't make what he did okay, but can I tell you, forgiveness isn't for that person. It's for you. You won't know the amazing things God can do until you forgive them. Then you can truly live life the way you were meant to and the way he meant for you to. From going to fear to such a precious joy is something only God can do. He did it for me and he can do it for you. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. Psalms 23:3. I have this amazing joy I can't even control, and my life has shifted. He called me out of the darkness into his wonderful light. I know the waters are scary, but there's a Father calling out to you, and anyone can walk in water if they really want to.